Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Tony Sirianni podcast. I am thrilled to have back on our friend Stan Gregor from Summit Financial. Welcome, Stan.
Hi, Tony. Good day. How are you?
I'm good. Well, you're calling from an undisclosed location. If I had a guess, I would say looks it's a beach.
It's
In
the family office,
North Carolina. Let's all say,
North
just in the
Carolina. Yeah,
suspense, it's North Carolina.
yeah, North
Great.
Carolina.
Hey,
Oak Island. We're suffering today. Lots
oh,
of
nice.
sunshine.
Yeah, you don't want to give too much information to this crowd out. But at the end of the day, I wanted to talk about because there's obviously this is something that you're heavily involved in. But when people ask me, and they ask me all the time, what's sort of the hottest topics in the industry right now? What are you seeing out there that's sort of driving change in the industry? And I'd have to say, among a couple of things, one of them is the minority interest purchases. That's something that's now turning into a scale that's really high. It certainly answers a lot of questions from an investor standpoint, which are questions, because I've started a couple of these myself, and I think I find this to be a really interesting topic. And I also think you might be the guy who's best versed to talk about it in the industry. So let's talk about
Oh,
it.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it is it's probably the most popular topic that I hear in this space, right? As you do as well. Um, Merchant and Summit discussed this model, I don't know, probably 6, 7 years ago, and we wanted to do things a little different. And it appears that the phrase minority purchase has taken hold, and there are a lot of firms out there using that as a business model, and it's it's interesting to me because minority purchase in itself, if you look at it in any kind of legal description, is a shareholder taking less than a 51% stake. But our model and purpose for getting into this space was really partnering with advisors, showing them how, but by providing capital and providing a platform for them to grow
Yeah.
both organically and inorganically. That was really the purpose of this. So um, a lot of the models that I see today, I, I question kind of what's behind it. There's a lot of
Yeah,
copycat
there's a
models.
lot. It goes, I would say there's copycats, right? So you have somebody sort of, gets in the space. And look,
Mhm.
as a sort of innovator there, you got to keep your eyes open to see, well, what are other people doing? Is there another innovation here? But unfortunately, especially if we're dealing with money and equity, which is the other side of this, right? Advisors are very often misinformed, and firms that don't know how to do this stuff, even if it's not on purpose, spreading misinformation or stuff they just don't know, or stuff that's never going to happen, right?
Yeah, it's the road rage analogy you and I have had, right? You can't fix every bad driver. Look, there are a lot of players out there, using a copycat approach. They're saying minority purchase, and I chuckle because what does that mean? So somebody makes a minority purchase, and then my next response is, and then what?
Right.
What's
Well,
happening
right.
once
And
you
then
sell
what?
a piece of your company? Right.
That's a key thing, because a monitor is a great idea. You should explain what it is, but also, it works really well when you grow. It's not as great if you don't grow. But do me a favor, just get it out there so everyone understands sort of what the classic example would be.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to go through our model, and then I'll go through what's out there. We created a minority purchase approach because we did say from the beginning we wanted to build a model as if we were going into business with our children. So to go in there and tell your child to sell the majority of their company today, knowing they have 10, 15, 20, 30 years of lead time to grow their company, that's not something I would do too much over. So I would rather help by giving them capital, having them grow. And at some point when I monetize, they get a chance to join me. But what we're seeing out there is
Well,
people are
that's a
using the
key
phrase
piece of it
minority
too. So
purchase.
don't lose that thread. I want to talk about the monetization equity part of it after, but keep going. So just don't let me forget.
Yeah, we can go into that piece of it. There are a lot of models out there, Tony, that you're reading about, which it's dream equity, right? It's not even the partner's money. Sometimes it's money that came in from third parties, and the third parties have control. I would never do that with my family or my friends or any of my partners in that structure. Like if you're going to do a minority purchase model, it needs to make sense for multiple reasons. One, it's okay. We're taking some chips off the table, but I don't see a lot of people selling a minority purchase because of that reason. What I would say are bigger reasons is they want to retain control, and the last two I think are the biggest. if that model of you joining the minority purchase structure helps you grow, and I say grow either organically and inorganically, that's a big check mark,
Yeah.
right? The liquidity event or the monetization, that's the back end. But to me, that's like shopping for a house before you have money. I mean, you have to grow your business and have a much bigger asset base to sell. And that's that growth piece that I'm talking about that is so critical in the middle. And I just don't see that in many of our players out there. They just,
Well, they're
yeah, that,
not equipped. A lot of people aren't equipped to that's why we talk about copycats. What's the danger of, folks? And look, by the way, you've seen it with professional, people who are supposedly in finance or hedge investors and all that. They've been going out buying stuff, just buying assets, buying assets. Sometimes there's not a rhyme or reason to it. And I don't think they understand that they're not buying a football team. This is a baseball team with independent players that could just tell you to
mhm.
piss off. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. Right? They could leave anytime they want. I don't think they get that. The other thing that doesn't happen, and we've talked about this in the context of advisors sometimes don't ask the right questions. And a lot of times it's like the cobbler's kids have no shoes. They should be
Right.
asking the questions, but they're not. And the people who are running these firms, hey, I'm going to go public. Well, you've actually done it, but it takes a lot to go public. They may get bought, but going public is a thing that, yeah, it's a tremendous opportunity, but there are very, very few of the players out there that are actually going to or capable of going public.
Tony, you had me as a guest speaker at one of your conferences, and I remember there was a player before us discussing about going public. The firm makes less than $1 million. I don't know how you can go public making less than $1 million. I mean, it's ridiculous. Some of these stories I hear, they're nothing but sales guys just pitching bullshit to people, and there's nothing behind it. There's no firm, there's no balance sheet. It's not their money. It's third party capital. You know, the private equity space, right? I mean, private equity is there for a turn, right? 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Well, if it's their capital and they're running the firm, they're making decisions. Well, in 3 to 5 years, they're going to be spinning it out.
Yeah, I
And
think it's
look at a track record.
yeah,
Look at the few firms that spun out in the last 4 years, and who's made the money? The PE guys and the main principal. Everybody else got screwed.
it's very,
You
I
know
always,
that.
and I could do consulting too for people, and we talk to them, but I always say it's your capital structure that's going to make a lot of the decisions for you. So if you don't have that right, if you don't have a cap table correct, or you don't understand the ownership structure of a company, let's put it this way: if the CEO can't tell you what the equity plan is, maybe that's a sign, or you don't understand it. This should be pretty simple to explain, right?
Yeah. Well, look, I tell people when they look at these models, ask the people you're speaking to, how much money do they put into it themselves? How big is their check? What do they write? Right. And if it's probably zero, which is in most cases, your antenna should go up. Second thing is who controls the money? Who controls the company? If it's third party, you and I have heard this story over and over. Firms telling us they don't really know what the end game is. They're just going to roll up all these minority purchase stories, and at someday it will work out. What kind of business model is that? Hope is not a strategy. I mean, you need to have a better outcome, a better business model than hope. So
So tell us
it's
a little.
it's
So
here.
tell us a little bit how you define. Look, people are interested. I want to talk about the growth piece too, because obviously that's important. But we're kind of on this liquidity end game kind of strategy. Let's just assume, for purposes of this conversation, we'll get back to it, that you're going to be much better off if you grow your business and then go into the end game, right? So we'll get there, but let's talk a little bit about liquidity in the end game.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So most of the teams that I come across, they they want to work hard, they want to grow. They've joined organizations where that was promised on me, and not a lot was delivered on the growth side. It was always back to the advisor to figure it out. They wanted to acquire businesses of people that were retiring or moving on. And it was impossible. The barrier to entry there, the cost of capital, the structures, the waterfall, all those terms were not in the advisor's positive position. They had to
Yeah,
kind of
but
figure
see,
it
but the
out.
advisors, I think the advisors before going into these conversations should at a minimum know what a waterfall is, know where they stand. And by the way, it's not, you don't have to be embarrassed to ask those questions. Explain it to me. Let me know, because
Yeah.
have them explain it to you, right? I mean, so that you can be comfortable. And if you're not comfortable, probably not the
Yeah.
best
I
idea.
look when I personally invest in a PE deal, I want to have a waterfall that has my capital with some kind of return, my capital with guaranteed return, When money's paid back, I get paid back first, and then there's a press on top of it. So there's multiple layers to this waterfall. And you're right, Tony. Most advisors are excellent in taking care of their clients and really watching out for them, but they're not PE guys. They don't really get into the weeds and see how a structure is put together and is it truly an equal structure? And in most cases, it's not. Money controls how these things work out, who gets paid when and first. And that's the biggest difference in our model. We're all in this thing as one big team. And I've not seen this in any vehicle that I have personally invested in prior to this structure that you have here. So to me, it's a big difference being treated equally and fairly.
Yeah, and then hopefully having people who understand what an IPO is at your back as well.
Yeah, look, you heard me say it. Who you partner with matters, right?
Mm.
So from a credibility standpoint, from a integrity standpoint, from an experience standpoint, but I, if you hear these stories about people that are going to be, taking their companies public, great. Have they ever done it before? Have they been involved in a structure like that? Have they taken a company public? Have they raised capital? Have they, repaid capital back to the main shareholders? And what's their track record? And in most of these cases, the answer is no. In fact, in most of the cases that I see, Tony, the principals are counting on this potential monetization as their lottery ticket.
Yeah.
And that scares the heck out of me because that's where a lot of information is not. I'm not going to say people lie, but let's just say people withhold certain information that they probably could have told them. I spend I spend probably 20% of my month helping people try to unwind bad deals that they didn't know what the details were. And it's just not good, not clear.
Not good at all. Well, on the positive side, another 20-30% of your time or more, you guys have put together a growth strategy, which I like, for advisors. So let's talk a little bit about getting advisors to grow in the context of a minority purchase. That's the best thing, right? Because you're selling a piece of your business revenue, but if you grow, it's a de minimis, thing. So what do you find? Just give me like two or three things you think that work best in helping advisors grow that you guys have put together at Summit?
Look, the advantage we have, Tony, is it's a 41-year-old firm, right? The firm's made a lot of good decisions and mistakes over the years, so thus they learned what to do and what not to do. The other big piece is the leaders, the people behind the firm, the experience, the access to capital, all those things come together. And you heard this phrase way in the beginning. This is a firm that was originally built by a bunch of advisors for advisors. We just have professionalized it. We've thrown in a ton of capital, resources, access to different products and services. So in my mind and our leadership's mind, we want to give advisors the tools to go out and get smart with their clients, win more business, win entire relationships, and grow.
So,
And
I mean,
that's
if
the
advisors
combination of
worry,
cash.
yeah,
Yeah,
if I come from Wirehouse, one of my worries is I'm going to have a diminution in services. I'm not going to be able to have all that stuff I need to grow, or I'm concerned it's not going to be sophisticated. Like these guys aren't going to understand estate planning. I need to stay at the big firm because they're the only guys who get it.
that's completely yes. In fact, many of our largest clients at our firm are senior people at those firms. So that's not even close to being true. Look, I've spent the first 30 years of my career working for the bulge bracket firms, and there was one tool in the toolbox, right?
Yeah.
Everything was like a nail, you had a hammer. That's it. Here, when you go independent, it's your company number one, right? There's a big difference. It's your organization. What we do is we open up the solutions that become so much broader, multi-custodian, multi-chassis for investment management, multi-solution for credit, financial planning. Uh, it's completely the opposite of what the wirehouses are scaring the advisors about. I'll give you an analogy. Somebody told me this. Nobody ever broke back into prison. Like, once you get out of prison,
Yeah,
I don't see you going back.
yeah. It's the I always call it the prisoner exchange where they go from one to
Yeah.
another. So we're on the wirehouses. We've been writing articles about deferred comp lately. There's been some lawsuits around that. I don't know if that's part of the stuff you have to unwind or unpack. Just talk guys through it when they come over, but I think it's
Yeah.
another big topic.
Tony, it is. It's an emotional. I mean, I can't fix everything. Right? It's just nobody. But it does bother me that some of the smartest people in our space who care about their clients get screwed the most. And this phrase deferred comp, you know, I do a play on the words. It's not their deferred comp, it's the firm's comp. If it's truly deferred, you can take it anytime you want. Why not go independent and you put your own deferred comp into your set plan with your money? Not have to rely on a firm coming after you in the middle of the night and ambushing you and saying, "Oh, you didn't open up an checking
Well,
account for
how
money
about this?
markets." So
It's
ridiculous.
yeah, it's deferred comp versus enterprise value, right? That's the other big phrase we hear all the time, right? So you hear
Yeah,
minority purchase here. How do you build enterprise value? Well, it's pretty hard to do at a wire, but it's that's in my mind the purpose of being independent. By the way, it's not easy to do. Everybody would do it, but at the same time,
no,
that's how you get enterprise value. You got to find the right partner, etc. Right?
yeah. Everything about the economics that we all grew up in has changed. I mean, deferred comp, capital gain versus ordinary income. Uh, I mean, just think of an advisor working at one of the big bulge bracket firms. They want to retire, and the firm is willing to give them maybe a 2.5 and last year's T12. That's ordinary income. What? After 40 years, can you imagine a client going to the advisor saying, I worked for 40 years, I built this company, I have a buyer that's going to pay 1 or 2 times. The advisor will tell the client run, but it happens every single day. And the worst thing is, not only is a multiple disgusting, it's ordinary income. It's not even a capital gain. So it is so wrong. It's, you know, I want to shout from the rooftop and just let people know, and we're trying to do that every single day. But it's just not a fair industry, and hopefully over the coming years, people will realize that and realize, wow,
Yeah.
there's got to be a better way, and let's go solve for it.
Well, you said we said a little bit about wordplay. I like that deferred comp versus deferred comp, but there's
Mhm.
also a little wordplay going on out there. And I'm hearing a lot about the Hotel California deal.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah.
Somebody invented that.
So think about the industry, what, 7, 8 years ago, you know, after the financial crisis, all the big firms got into recruiting. They're all, you know, courting the advisors, come join us. Here's a loan bonus. You know, here's a bonus to come join. It's not a loan. It's not a bonus. It's a loan that you have to pay over time, right? So that was a little deceptive. But if you were not paying attention, what they did in the middle of the night is they dropped out of protocol. So even though those are your clients as an advisor, the firm quietly dropped out, and now if you leave, they zap you. They give you a book out to the rest of the brokers in the office, and they go after your clients. I mean, it's despicable. It's horrible. And that was primarily just in big BD land, but now you're starting to see in RIA land. I mean, you look at the deal that went, like the news that came out from Citywire last week with LPL, right? Preventing independent guys from working with outside outside capital to monetize and grow their businesses. Well, they're doing the same thing. They want to lock you in. They don't ever want to let you leave, and it's the same story over and over. The big firms, just like big pharma, try to lock you in and and scare you that the outside world is bad, but Tony, I don't know what to say. It's reality, but the Hotel
Yeah,
California phrase, I like that because you know you join, they don't ever want you to leave, so it's a
right,
one way ticket.
right. Well,
Welcome to the Hotel California. Yeah,
believe it or not, that might be a good point to end on. So we've already done over 20 minutes, but I think that that's a high note. So I appreciate, as always, your insights. The advisors, do too. So thanks for giving us some color on the minority interest stuff and everything else. So appreciate your time, Stan.
thank you, Tony. Have a great day. Thank you
Thanks.
all.